Hello, this is Craig Lane with Video Blog Week 23, first week in June, heading into the fire element. Very shortly, Craig Lane, healthalchemy.com, HEALTHALKEMY.com. We have a few new seminars coming up. June 16th, we're doing a gut cleanse, which you do not have to be here in person, and we have a brain seminar also beginning June 16th, which is via phone, and there will be pre-recorded information on that. The gut cleanse will also be providing a YouTube of me working through a PowerPoint, and it will be a group cleanse, so you'll be able to work with others online. And then later this summer, we'll be offering gut chelation cleanses, 10-day blood sugar cleanses, and food allergy and intolerance testing, all of which will be available on the internet. And one could be sort of in a virtual community, which if you want to hear more about a container, is go back to one of my video blogs where I talk about the container. Today we're going to talk about free radicals, and when I talk about free radicals, we're talking about oxidative metabolism gone out of control. And in Chinese medicine, we talk about fire gone out of control. Very appropriate for this season, because the body has in place various mechanisms to buffer and protect itself against free radicals. I've been studying some things more recently about metabolic testing and very simple tests that used to be used and can be used that help us determine whether we're dysaerobic or an excessive free radical activity. And since all the cell membranes of the body are composed of fatty acids and cholesterol, and other things too, but since the majority of it is that, you have to realize that if we're in excessive oxidative metabolism and our cell membranes are overly permeable, i.e. they're just too liquidy and hot, in other words, the body's going to produce excessive cholesterol or sterols, and we need more saturated fat at that point and stabilizing influences to cut this back. And so when I talk about free radicals, we're talking about really about fire. And in today's world, there was a saying I read many years ago that the last age of the earth ended in water, i.e. the flood and Noah's Ark. You hear these references to. And this age of the world is transitioning. I won't say ending, because there are no endings in life. Even if the earth was to explode, there would be no ending to life as we know it. From our perspective, it would be tragic, but from the perspective of spirit and awareness, it's just another going on and happening. And this age of the world is to end in fire, or transition through fire. So what do we see as fire? We see radiation. We see Fukushima. It never ended. Just because the press isn't telling us about Fukushima doesn't mean there's not radiation constantly floating over us. So there's fire there. We have Wi-Fi signals. Many communities, in my office I sit in now in my home, there's anywhere from 5 to 15 Wi-Fi signals transitioning through my field at any given moment. We have cell phone signals. That's fire. We have computer screen emanating off at us, televisions. We have cordless phones. They're still fire. We have fire coming out of refrigerators and all kinds of EMFs coming out of the walls. And this is not to make people panic, but this causes excessive free radical activity in the body. So when we talk about free radicals, to make it simple for us, we just talk about fire. Electricity is fire. These microwaves are fire, right? You put something in the microwave, you don't see anything, but it comes out hot. That's fire moving through the system that's in there, the food or the water or whatever. So in today's world, there's other things that are aggravating this, and I'm going to keep it really practical in terms of today. The context of today is that there are a couple of things in our diet that we just take it for granted, and it comes back to this fresh factor. And that's where, when you have polyunsaturated oils, which grains and nuts have some polyunsaturated oils in them, anything that's not fresh, when you grind it or leave it with exposure, then you're going to have a lot of rancidification, which is basically going to cause a lot of free radicals in the body, and then you're going to have a lot of inflammation. Remember, free radicals and fire means irritation, inflammation, and that's a couple of the markers: irritability and inflammation. So if you've got that at a cellular level and on a gut level, then you're going to have a reactive immune system, because the gut is based in the immune system. you're going to have a lot of excessive toxicity for your liver and your filtering organs to deal with. And so a couple of things we can do to keep this really practical is, if you're going to eat flour foods, in other words, if you have a grain, say this is a grain, my tip of my finger here, this is a grain, and you grind it into 3,000 zillion pieces, you've exposed it, each of those 1,000 zillion pieces, to air. And there are oils in those things. Grains have oils in them. Think about wheat germ oil. There's germ oils in all grains, even quinoa, millet, whatever, coconuts, almonds, even the GAPS people on their, grainless diet. There's still fresh factors that need to be considered. So you grind it into a 3 zillion pieces, you need to make your baked product right then and there. Royal Lee, the founder of Standard Process Incorporated, talked about this many years ago. And he was just passing on information that was found out from the flour millers over 100 years ago, when we started not making fresh ground flour products anymore, and the bread tasted awful. And they did surveys of people over 100 years ago, and it was like, oh God, this bread tastes horrible. That's the rancid germ oils in there. So within a week to 10 days of leaving that stuff exposed out in the air, those germ oils are rancid. So one thing I tell my clients to consider is, if you're going to be making your baked goodies, we're all addicted to our little baked goodies, then make sure you're getting stuff fresh. How do you know? You got to start asking questions. Your bulk flours, we think we're getting these healthy bulk bin flours and saving the planet by not getting so much packaging. Well, I say that what we need to do is have, in every 3 or 4 or 5 homes, we all don't need to have one, but we buddy up with our neighbors and get a flour grinder, or at very least get a coffee grinder or a Vitamix machine with a flour attachment, or some kind of grain mill so we can grind our flours fresh. And we all don't have to have one. In America, we all seem to have shit, but make sure your flours are fresh. I'm not saying not to eat flour foods, but I am saying they need to be fresh. Otherwise, you're causing excessive free radical activity. And it's one of the main things I'm seeing through some testing methods that I was already suspect in my 20 years in health of looking at, eyes and tongues and pulses and all that, heat and irritations in the system. And you can see it real clearly on the tongue, especially when the tip and front of the tongue are redder than the rest of the tongue. It's a clear, as a matter of fact, I got it today, and that tells me my exposure is rather high. And that's a quick, easy self-assessment, which we will be doing through Health Alchemy, is offering some real simple self-assessment measures that anybody can do. And if you live in the Bay Area, we're going to be offering some health labs here free of charge here in the office on Sundays fairly soon, where you can come in and get yourself tested. And then when we get the system integrated and in place, then we'll be charging sort of monthly or fees for people to come in and get actual, functional health evaluations, if you will. So back to the free radicals. The other thing are, besides flours, are polyunsaturated oils that are cooked and heated. So we have, the vegans out there with their, as I used to be, I will just send my own I statements of projection. When I was a vegan, I had the superiority complex that I was going to save the world by eating my vegan foods, such as canola, corn, soy oils, cottonseed, grapeseed, whatever, these really high polyunsaturates. And when they're heated, guess what? You're back to free radical land. That's why our ancestors cooked in lard, cooked with coconut oil in the tropics, cooked with palm oil, cooked with ghee. These saturated fats are very stable. And the food manufacturers knew that. That's why they made these cheap synthetic margarines, i.e. trans fats. These were more stable. But the problem with the trans fats is that they're unnatural and they cause a lot of toxicity. And in my first research paper 18 to 20 years ago, and when I began my practice in college, was on hydrogenated oils and trans fats. And there was already good research that showed they were toxic and carcinogenic, because again, every cell membrane in the body is composed of fats. And if you're putting the wrong kind of fats in there, i.e. you may not even absorb them in the first place, and they'll just cause a lot of irritation all the way down. And two, what you do absorb, if you're fat deficient, not getting enough fats in your diet, then you are going to absorb them, and your body's going to make cell membranes out of by default because, hey, I need some building blocks here. If you're trying to build a house and you don't have the best materials, well, the builder's going to grab whatever he can. And, our body's intelligent. It's not stupid. So it's going to do the best it can given its circumstances. And then what you'll see is rising cholesterol levels, especially LDL relative to HDL. So LDL and HDL are not cholesterol. It's a bit of biochemical ignorance to state such. LDL means high density lipoprotein. I don't see cholesterol anywhere in that statement. HDL, LDL, low density lipoprotein. So when they say HDL and LDL cholesterol, you're buying into a collusion of ignorance. They carry cholesterol. So if cholesterol are the firemen on the fire trucks, then HDL and LDL are the fire trucks. Very simple analogy. So you don't go taking a statin and disable the fire trucks and kill the firemen. That's ridiculous. The body is simply doing an adaptive mechanism to inflammation. And you look at the root of the problem. You don't take a drug to suppress and make numbers look better, because the body, if it is forced to do that, it will calcify. It will do anything it can to protect itself against this free radical inflammatory invasion. And then we have heavy metals also. And then you want to really be careful with not getting enough minerals in your body, because then your body will absorb cadmium because it kind of looks like zinc. Your body will absorb mercury and copper and all these excitotoxins. And even aluminum could probably likely be absorbed more readily if we're in a mineral deficient state. So a couple antidotes: take your mineral rich foods. Seaweed's a good one. I know I hear this a lot about Fukushima, and I hear a lot about how herbs and plants will absorb heavy metals out of the soil. But I'm of the view that the tenet in Chinese medicine that health is the free movement of blood and qi in the body. So if you've got an herb and with a lot of other phytonutrients, i.e. a natural, nature-based food, if that stuff is present, it's going to move in and move out. And if your gut flora is heavy, I've been studying the GAPS material of Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride over many, many years now, and I was just rereading an article because I am doing a small intestine cleanse in a few weeks, as I alluded to earlier, that the number one thing that keeps us healthy is our gut flora. So, take care of your gut and don't put a lot of sugar and alcohol and crappy stuff down there. Drugs and medications also ruin that gut flora. There's a lot of, intelligence down there, and we're actually, mostly microbes. So we need to get over it and begin cooperating with the thing that's dominant in our bodies. We're a shell encasing microbes with a certain awareness and intelligence we call ourselves. But is it really us? What are we really craving? Who or what is craving? So then these free radicals, maybe parts of us crave sugar and crave these free radicals because it keeps them going. But the pathogens that live in us, they're not stupid. There's this primal intelligence there. So it's time, as I said to myself, it's time to take charge. And I'm the master of my own domain. And that's part of the portals we pass through as a maturing being, is to take charge of ourselves. And so we can, and we say it's hard to beat these cravings, but we're the master of making the choices, not them. And violence also, we're going to anti-parasite ourselves and nuclear bomb us with antibiotics and other things that we subtly do to ourselves, with these violent statements we make, like, I'm going to get you out of here, I'm going to purge you out. And I like the analogy of much more gentler, like, okay, the weeds around the tree have gotten a bit overgrown, and some of the moss and parasitic things that grow in and around the tree, if the tree is the gut flora, we're just going to prune you because there's a function for everything. I was in a debate last night with an old friend, or a new friend, about maybe parasites have a purpose. And there's been some interesting studies he was pointing out to me about people with various syndromes. They actually were fed live parasites, and their situation got a lot better. And it makes me wonder about opening things up to a broader perspective, that everything has a context in nature and everything has a purpose. And I'm not saying to go out and eat parasite-rich foods, nor am I saying to go out and eat candida-rich foods, but I am saying that we keep ourselves open to a broader perspective. And so the theme of this is free radicals. We may do another video blog because I'm realizing I was going to talk about free radicals of consciousness too, but we're about the 15-minute point, and I like to usually cut these short about this. So a couple of things we can do is eat more minerals, don't be afraid of saturated fats, and eat fresh foods. If you want to be a vegan and you don't want to eat much saturated fat, especially animal foods, hey, that's okay. Just make sure you're getting fresh nuts and seeds. Make sure you're getting some coconut or palm oil. Make sure you're getting saturated fat in your body through some source, some stabilizing influence. Avocados are high in monounsaturates, so your monounsaturated oils are at least more stable than your polyunsaturates. And please, for God's sakes, don't eat refined oils, and especially cooked and refined polyunsaturates. That's your soy and canola oil you'll see out there in everything. I can't even eat out these days because they're mixing olive oil with canola and looking at grapeseed and cottonseed and these cheap oils of foods of commerce, as I call them. So avoid those and eat fresh and eat raw oils. And if there's one word you walk away with, this is eat fresh, and don't heat your oils. If you're going to heat oils and you want to fry foods, great, but fry in sesame, ghee, coconut oil if you're a vegan, olive oil at very low temperatures. But if you want to do a vegan thing, you probably shouldn't be frying your oils because you don't have enough stability in your system anyways. So if you're a vegan, heat your food in water, for God's sakes, and then add the oil after the food is cooked and let it melt in. And make sure your nuts and seeds are fresh. Craig Lane, Health Alchemy. We're likely to continue Free Radicals Part 2 next week. Signing out. HealthAlchemy, healthalchemy.com. And I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful day as we head into this brightness of the summer solstice.